things. Now let's look at a second one here for sake of time. And then we'll stop after these four and see what questions you might have. Second one, have any of you heard somebody maybe give this advice? If you're trying to make a decision, listen for the still, small voice. Have you heard this one? You don't have to raise your hand necessarily. I've been told many times, hey, you're trying to make a decision. Still yourself, be quiet, turn off your headphones and sit still and listen for the still, small voice. And my question is, okay, where does the Bible teach that when we're making a decision, we're supposed to quiet ourselves and listen for a still, small voice? Where does the scriptures teach this? Now, the story of the still, small voice, does anybody know where the story comes from? Anyone know? Exodus, no? I thought you guys were Baptists. All right, no worries. Turn with me to 1 Kings chapter 19. You know the story. Once it hits, you'll go, oh, I know the story. It's the story of God speaking to the prophet Elijah on Mount Sinai. You remember this? You know the story. So in 1 Kings chapter 18, Elijah had just defeated the prophets of Baal. Runs home, he's on a spiritual high, and then discovers that the king's wife, Jezebel, Ahab's wife, wants to kill him. He flees for his life to Mount Sinai, seems to fall into like this depression, saying, I'm the only one, everybody's against me. And God speaks to him. So let's take a look at what happens. So this is in 1 Kings. Let's go to chapter 19, verse 9. So 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 9. 1 Kings 19, 9. Give a little context just to make sure we're tracking. It says, there he, Elijah, came to a cave and lodged in it. So by the way, if you're going to find the real Mount Sinai, there should be or have been a cave somewhere right around it. Side note. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel, forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with a sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. Verse 11. And he said, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after an earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. So the sound of what? A whisper. Not a feeling, not a nudge, not an intuition, a whisper. As you read the story, did you get the impression that if you were there, you would have heard it as well? Yeah, this is an objective whisper, not an internal feeling or nudge. And when he heard it, verse 13, he wrapped his face in his cloak, went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice that said to him, a what came to him? A voice, not a feeling, not an inner sense that God was somehow present, making him feel he wanted to do A, B, or C. It says, a voice came to him and said, what are you doing here, Elijah? And they have a conversation back and forth. Was there a still small voice speaking to Elijah? The answer is yes. But it was a still small voice. It was an actual voice. At least the story, as you read it, straightforward, is God having this interaction through fire. If we were there, we would have seen the fire. If you were there, you could have felt the earthquake. You could have felt the wind, and you could have heard the voice. God is Now, I love that he wasn't in the fire and the earthquake because he's hurting and God speaks gently to him. There's something powerful about this. But you see how it's a voice? It's an audible voice. Now, right now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, Sean, you're slowly taking away these ways that I've become accustomed to believing that God speaks. Where are you going with this talk? Okay, so let me stop and say, I'm not limiting how God speaks. Quite obviously, God can speak however he wants to speak. Of course he can. He can speak from a gremlin under your bed if he wants to. I mean, he's God. you see the question I'm asking? What does the text teach? What does the text tell us? What is the text directing us to when the question comes to knowing God's will? At least this passage doesn't teach that we listen for a still small voice that's a feeling or a nudge or some sense like that.